Shri Srimad Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki, Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Janita Go Praying. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. From Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 33, Activities of Kapila. Arjuna told me it was text 9 last night, so this must be the correct verse then. Yes? Most likely it is. Okay, so surprise verse, text 11. Please repeat. Shraddhatsvaitan matam mayam Justam yad brahmavadibhi Yena mam abhayam yaya Mrityum mrichanti yatavidaha Shraddhatsvaitan matam mayam Justam yad brahmavadibhi Yena mam abhayam yaya Mrityum mrichanti yathavidaha Shraddhatsvaitan matam mayam Justam yad brahmavadibhi Mam abhayam yaya Mrityum mrichanti yadavidaha. Ladies. Synonyms. Shra, da, sva. You may rest assured. Etat, about this. Matam, instruction. Mayam, my. Justam, followed. Yat, which. Brahmavadi bihi, by transcendentalists. Yena, by which. Mam, unto me. Abhayam, without fear. Yaya, you shall reach. Mrityum, death. Richanti, attain. Atat vidaha, persons who are not conversant with this. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Jala Prabhupada Ki. Translation, my dear mother, those who are actually transcendentalists certainly follow my instructions as I have given them to you. You may rest assured that if you traverse this path of self-realization perfectly, surely you shall be freed from fearful material contamination and shall ultimately reach me. Mother, persons who are not conversant of this method of devotional service certainly cannot get out of the cycle of birth and death. Purport. Material existence is full of anxiety and therefore it's fearful. One who gets out of this material existence automatically becomes free from all anxieties and fear. One who follows the path of devotional service enunciated by Lord Kapila is very easily liberated. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanan Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Kam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Grimya Kripatam Ham Vande Shri Guru Dinataranam. So what's happening in this chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam? Here, and where in the past couple of verses, Kapila Dev is actually giving encouragement to her mother Devahuti. After instructing her mother Devahuti of several chapters of how to extricate herself out of material existence, Devahuti, at the beginning of this chapter, is actually expressing her heartfelt gratitude and affection towards her son. So now we just heard a couple of verses of Kapila Dev giving encouragement to her mother. Look, you just heard this massive spiel about Sankhya Yoga, and now you have to become liberated from this material existence, which we're hearing is full of anxiety, therefore it's full of fear. Try and imagine material existence as a place full of anxiety. Is that something that we meditate on, generally speaking? Most materialists, when you see them out there on the streets, are they meditating that their life is full of anxiety and therefore it's full of fear? Actually, Srila Prabhupada explains in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam that out of the 4 problems of this material existence, fearing is the most intense. Why is that? Because we don't know what's going to happen at any moment. As soon as we leave this place, as soon as we step somewhere, anything can happen. It's so much uncertainty, so much instability. Therefore, actually, subconsciously, the conditioned living entity is always fearing, oh, what's going to happen next? I've accumulated so much material affluence, material things around me. At any moment, these things could just be disappeared and taken away. So subconsciously, actually, the conditioned soul is always fearing about their material position, their situation in this material existence, because everything can be taken away by Kaloshmi Lokakshakrit Pravido, time, the destroyer of all worlds. Krishna says, destroys all worlds. So it's only a matter of time before everything is being taken away from us, including the very bodies and minds that we are wearing. So therefore,
Now, this purport Prabhupada's explaining material existence is full of anxiety. Just try and understand. If you're implicated in this material existence, it's actually a very anxious situation. What's going to happen next? You see just the living entities out there, the birds, the beasts, especially birds. How anxious are they? They're always looking around. Is a cat going to eat me? Something going to bite me? And it's like that. We have this in the modern materialistic existence, some kind of solidarity of like nothing's going to happen to us. With our materialistic association, there's this sort of aura of, oh, well, we're going to be fine. Science is going to solve everything. There's going to be a vaccine for this pandemic. There's going to be some economic genius that will solve all the economic problems in the world. There's going to be some philosopher that will give us meaning to life. It's going to be all good because life's good. The sun's shining. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. Auckland's a pretty good place. It's not like completely contaminated like a third world country. We've got it pretty good going for us. And this way, the materialistic mind tricks us that we're actually living in a very nice place. But is it a really nice place? If you just venture off into the forest out the back there where those woods and trees are, without any real knowledge, you might think, wow, look at this place. The birds are chirping, little critters are crawling, the river is flowing, the sea is wonderful, the breezes are beautiful, the fresh breezes of Auckland. You might think, yeah, but what's actually really happening in material existence? Janma, mrityu, vyadi, dukkha, doshnu, darshana, birth, death, old age, and disease, full of suffering. So you might think, yeah, look at this lovely little birds chirping and singing in the forest. But what's actually happening? The bird's just thinking, oh, what am I going to eat? What am I going to eat? Who am I going to mate with? How am I going to defend my nest? And actually, in this way, you can learn a lot from material existence and the creatures of material existence. How actually in the animal kingdom, it's always a situation of anxiety and fear. If you ever get a chance to watch those Discovery channels of all those animals getting eaten and getting hunted by predators in the wild woods, it's like that. Material existence, you're getting hunted by what? By time. You're accumulating all these things, working day and night, working hard for accumulating material wealth. And you're hunted by the tiger of time, stalking you, tiger of time. But we don't see it. Why? Because this veil of illusion. We don't see this veil of illusion that time at some point is going to take everything away. So for someone who has actual knowledge, this material existence is actually full of anxiety. It's not a very nice place, therefore it's always fearful. And how can you be happy in an atmosphere full of, completely saturated with fear and anxiety? It's impossible. Therefore, intoxication of all kinds and descriptions. You have to be intoxicated in this material world in order to just get by through one day. For most people, you've got to have, if it's not alcohol, let it be, or drugs, coffee, tea, whatever it is. You just got to have some kind of stimulant to keep you going throughout the day. It's like, oh my God, so much anxiety, so much pressure, so much stress with my boss, my family, my school. Just got to get some kind of stimulant, some kind of fix to keep me going forward throughout the day. So Prabhupada makes it very clear in this purport. One who follows the path of devotional service enunciated by Lord Kapila is very easily liberated. So what Kapila Dev is teaching her mother is very extraordinary. And in the previous verses, Devahudi is expressing her heartfelt gratitude and affection to her son Kapila Dev. Thank you so much. This is actually a very extraordinary situation that we have here in this specific part of the Bhagavatam. We're hearing the emotional dynamics between mother and son. Of course, this is not an ordinary mother and son. Why is it extraordinary? Number one, Devahudi. She's submissively hearing from her son. How many mothers out there are willingly to submissively, my dear son, instruct me about the science of Krishna consciousness so I can be free from my material existence. For those of you who are in the Otaki festival, His Holiness Deva Midaswami made that very clear. Because as far as I know, with my own relationship with my own mother, she can't hear anything from her son that's regarding philosophy, the meaning of life, and the meaning of this world. All that the mother can see is just, oh, my baby. And it doesn't matter how old you are. Jai Shila came up to me after that class and he said, yeah, my mother's 90 years old now and I'm 70. And all these years, my mom still treats me like I'm a baby. It's just the hardwired conditioning that the woman has. So this is very extraordinary. Where in the world do you see where mom is like, my dear son, please extricate me out of material existence? This is not an ordinary mother and son relationship. Actually, every time I meet up with my mom, it's just such, all she's talking about is, oh, are you warm enough? Have you got enough clothes? Have you got enough food to eat? What else? Are you thinking of getting a job yet? Did you know that your cousin owns a company now? Actually, that your other cousin, he owns 2 companies. It goes on and on and on and on. Like this. When are you going to get a house? Are you thinking of a career? Mom, it's been almost 20 years I've been living as a monk. Just give me a break, And from time to time she'll say things like, oh, what's that funny mark on your face? Why is it people wearing orange and why are people wearing white? You've asked me this like over a dozen times the past 18 years, Mum. And I've told you over a dozen times why we do these things. It just goes in one ear and outside the other, It's just like a superficial, external, very, just chit-chat. And you can kind of tolerate it for a couple of hours, but for 3 days straight, my goodness, you just go crazy. It's like, just give me a break, But when one Mataji came, Ratnavali Mataji came, she's been a devotee for almost 30 years. She sat down with my mum, and all of a sudden, my mum's like, oh, so, what do you guys believe in Hare Krishna consciousness? What does the Bhagavad Gita say? What's the meaning of life? What do you guys chant 16 rounds? I was completely bewildered. Why are you asking her all that? And then me, I'm just like, oh, you're my baby. It's completely, the conditioning's intense. So when I first read this pastime, I'm thinking, man, this is not an ordinary mother and son relationship. Obviously, there's something more substantial in this relationship. Devahuti is not an ordinary mother, and Kapila Dev is not an ordinary son. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead giving us Sankhya, analytical study of what is matter, what is spirit, and ultimately to extricate ourselves from this material existence. Therefore, mother is like, Haribol, thank you so much. In a real society, anyone that teaches us this Bhagavat Tattva deserves more than actually just our gratitude and our affection, but our whole life of servitude. And because Devahuti Mataji comes from Satya Yuga, comes from a different age, you could appreciate this idea of Bhagavat Tattva. So therefore, thank you so much. She's actually expressing her heartfelt affection. And then actually, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains in his commentaries to this section that Kapila Dev is actually choking up with affection towards her mother as he's actually going about encouraging, yeah, you can do it, Mom, you can do it, you can chant 16 rounds, you can go back to God. He's actually choking up in affection. So that's another extraordinary point. Now, how many of you here have mothers? Have you ever been choked up with affection, saying, Mom, you're chanting 16 rounds? Okay, there may be some exceptional cases. There's always exceptional cases. But generally speaking, the sons and the relationship with their mothers, oh my God, they're not generally choking up with affection. Oh, Mom, thank you so much for giving me such a wonderful life in this material world. Especially those, for most of us who unfortunately grew up in this so-called Western society, don't have generally very good interactions with our family, if we have a family at all. So, as I'd like to point out, even if we have mothers and fathers, even if we grew up with mothers and fathers for several years within our as we grew up in this world, the mothers and fathers don't even know how to be proper mothers and fathers. Mom doesn't know how to be a mom in the material sense. even in the material sense. And father doesn't know how to be a father in the material sense. So even if you boast, yes, I have a proper mother and father, I am psychologically wholesome, Kali Yuga is full of traumas. If your mom and your dad was encouraging you to get into sense gratification from day one, which is really the only thing they can do unless they've got transcendental knowledge, you're full of traumas. This whole Kali Yuga is full of traumatized out people of varying degrees. Even if you have a mother and father, but they don't know how to raise you as a proper child. I was remembering my spiritual master, His Holiness David Amrita Swami, was explaining as one of my godbrothers. Mom worked at a bookshop in Wellington. And because mom wanted to express her affection to her son, what did mom do? She brought home a pile of magazines for her son. And you know what the magazines were? Porno! It's Kali Yuga parenting, It's like, how can you, here, my dear son, here, take some Hustler and play. And out of my love and affection, just take them. What kind of parent does that to their children in the real sense? So even, again, if you have a proper mother and father, the best they can say, you just do whatever makes you feel good, son or daughter. If you've got a boyfriend at 13, at least bring him home or bring her home. At least you can be in the safety of our, house. Whatever you do, it's up to you. But anyway, just bring them home. This is Western so-called parenting. So for most of us, and I can't boast because I certainly came from that background, my parents certainly didn't know what to do with me when I was growing up. I was a pretty extreme kid, extreme music, extreme sports. And here we're hearing that after Kapila Dev instructed and encouraged her mother, he fulfilled his mission in life and left the house. But for me, my mom left me, and she wasn't searching out for Krishna either, She was like, yep, you're 17-year-old now, I want to carry on with my careerism and go to Sydney and make lots of money. So that was my situation. Like, mom's leaving me. My dad left me when I was like 8 years old, and then now my mom's leaving me at 17 years old. And then now I've got to fend for myself in this wild, wild world. Had to go live with my best friend for a few months and got my own flat, being independent. Thought I knew everything. 17, 18 years old, you think you know everything in the material world. I've got all these plans to study for 7 years in tertiary education and maybe go traveling and make some money or something like that. But actually, the way that for most people are brought up in this so-called advanced civilization, it's not the way, it was certainly not the standard of the Bhagavatam or Vedic culture of any sense, So naturally there's all these psychological problems, traumas. It's not, no one is basically practically free from this, and especially in the Western world. So in any case, why am I saying all this? Kapila Dev, Devahudi, they're not an ordinary mother and son. So after Kapila Dev instructed and encouraged her mother in the science of Bhagavad Tattva, it's time to go, Mom. See you later. I'm out of here. I've given you the purpose and the process about executing the meaning of life. Now I have to go and look for Krishna. And in this way, he instructs us all, actually, that what is the real essence of life? It's not to be staying and comfortable in this material existence in a so-called safe situation. A nice house, a nice hut, a nice village. We have to go and find Krishna. And when Kapila Dev left the abode of Kardama Muni, you'll hear in the next verses that actually Devahudi, she's even put in more anxiety and lamentation out of attachment for her son, Kapila Dev, who was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the more that she was feeling separation from her son, the more she became detached from material existence. So this is number 3, another extraordinary point to consider in this relationship between mother and son. How is it in the material world that when your children leave home and you feel like this really intense longing and separation, you become detached from material existence? actually. That doesn't happen in a mundane relationship. But because Kapila Deva is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the more Devahudi was feeling separation from her son, she was actually becoming more transcendental. She was becoming more Krishna conscious. So you'll see this example actually throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 10th canto, or in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where actually the Supreme Personality of God is always coming and going. He's coming to meet with the devotees, he's leaving the devotees. So constantly this dynamic, this internal dynamic is there between the devotee and Krishna. Oh, he's coming, Krishna is coming. Oh, he's going. You see this emotional dynamic happening in different varieties of and levels of Krishna consciousness throughout the Shastra. Another example was in Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas. You may remember he shaved off his head. He shaved off his hair, sorry. He shaved the hair off his head. And he decided that he wanted from Navadvip to go to Vrindavan to be completely immersed in serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Lord Nityananda diverted him and kept him in Navadvip in his ecstasy. And he had to stay in Advaitacharya's house. And Advaitacharya had to cook feast after feast after feast. For 10 days this went on. Advaitacharya and his wife was cooking feast after feast, and they were doing kirtan every night in Advaitacharya's house in Navadvip. And on the 10th day, or after the 10th day, Sachi Mata, accompanied with other devotees from Navadvip, came and took darshan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Chaitanya. And immediately when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw Srimati Sachi Devi, what did he do? He paid obeisances, dandavat. Mother! He fell down flat in the ground. My mother! Obeisances. Just see, Mahaprabhu is teaching us how to respect, even as a sannyasi. He's the topmost sannyasi, sannyasi Roman. He's the topmost sannyasi, that even as a sannyasi we should be very respectful to our mothers. What to speak of brahmacharis and everyone else. Sannyasis, they was very respectful to Ma. And Sachi Mata took Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on his lap and started caressing him and holding him and kissing him, and with tears flowing from her eyes, trying to observe the beautiful features of his body. But she couldn't see because there was so much tears coming out of her eyes. My beautiful son, caught up in this ecstasy. And then again, there again, another example. It doesn't matter whether you're a sannyasi or a brahmachari, kid is always going to be my baby. Even Lord Chaitanya was treated by Sachi Mata just like as her own baby. He doesn't, you're a sannyasi, whatever, just come on my lap. You're my son. So in any case, Mother Sachi was very perturbed because my son has taken sannyas, and how am I going to see you again? Your elder brother Vishvarup has already left this world, taken sannyas, but are you going to follow suit? This is going to create a lot of anxiety for Sachi Devi. So she wanted confirmation from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that you won't do like your brother did, Vishvarup. And Lord Chaitanya said to his mother, "Oh, my dear mother, this body comes from you. It was raised by you. I can never forget you. I owe you my whole life. I will do whatever you say." In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches us how to actually pacify the mother. We don't put them in more anxiety, like Jenny, when you first come to Krishna consciousness, you kind of like a little bit spaced out, you come to the loft, and after a couple of years you want to be a brahmachari, and then you tell your parents, "Yeah, Mom, I'm going to be a brahmachari, I'm going to renounce the whole world." And then Mom's like, "What, brahmachari? What's that? You're going to be a monk? Are we ever going to see you again?" But here Lord Chaitanya is actually being very sensitive to Mom. I've taken sannyas, but I'm not going to forget you. He's being very sensitive. Your body, my body belongs to you. You've raised this body. I'm never going to be indifferent from you. I'm always going to be here for you. You can see me. And this way, Lord Chaitanya was actually very sensitive. Although he took sannyas, was very sensitive to his mother. So, Mother Sachi was very happy with how Lord Chaitanya responded to her anxiety. Oh, I'm never going to see you again. Actually, when Mother Sachi was there, she wanted a petition. She made a petition. As long as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is staying here in Navadvip, let me cook for him every day. You guys, you can see him all the time, but the sannyasi is not meant to stay at home. So while he's here in Navadvip, let me cook for him. And she got this benediction. And after a while, several days, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was thinking, oh man, I'm a sannyasi, still I'm stuck here in this place with my relatives and friends. The sannyasis are not meant to be staying too close to relatives and a place of birth. I should get the heck out of here. And he was saying to Advaita Acharya, look, make some arrangement. You know, I'm now taking the renounced order of life. I make some arrangement. If I don't leave, I will become criticized. You know, but at the same time, I don't want to be indifferent and take you all into disregard, so make some arrangement. So then they made some arrangement that Lord Chaitanya went to Jagannath Puri, which is basically like 2 rooms in the same house. Jagannath Puri and Navadvip are like very close to each other. So in this way, all the devotees in Navadvip, including Shachi Mata, can hear of Lord Chaitanya's well-being because he's very close. At the same time, he can be far away. So they made this special arrangement for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And after this arrangement was made, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked permission from the residents of Navadvip. Okay, now we made this arrangement. Please kindly let me go. You know, it took him many days. Actually, then Advaita Acharya was saying, well, actually, just 4 more days, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Just stay for 4 more days. Okay, Advaita Acharya, 4 more days. I'll stand. And then the feasting and the chanting went on for 4 more days. And then after that, he really did leave. You know, after the 4th day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu circumambulated his mother and left the house of Advaita Acharya. And there was a big tumult, and there was a big uproar. Everyone was crying. Oh my God, Mahaprabhu is finally going to leave. They're crying. And what did Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu do? Just left. He just stuffed us, I'm out of here, you know. And actually, the word that was used by Kaviraj Goswami was nirapeksha, which was translated, or you can see in the word-for-word translation by Srila Prabhupada, is indifferent. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very indifferent to that situation, being totally determined and focused to execute the goal of life. And then Prabhupada writes in his purport that actually, you know, a lot of mundane or worldly moralists will say something about the behavior of Sri Chaitanya. Why did he do that? Why did he just leave his mother crying and all his relatives crying, you know? But actually, Prabhupada wrote in his purport, actually we should be callous to such mundane worldly moralists. By executing the goal of life, we're doing the best thing for ourselves and for everyone around us. Paraphrasing. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was indifferent towards such worldly attachment, although despite Advaita Acharya beckoning him and weeping, he was following Lord Chaitanya as he was leaving Navadvip. Oh, why are you leaving? Advaita Acharya is so attached to Lord Chaitanya. And then Lord Chaitanya had to turn around and said to Advaita Acharya, look, if you can't become composed, how is everyone else supposed to be composed in Navadvip? You're the elder, you're the senior, you're going to get it together. Otherwise, no one's going to get it together. You know, you turn back and you go around and you make kirtan every day. So in this way, Lord Chaitanya was both very sensitive, very soft, very caring, very loving to friends and relatives. When he took sannyas, at the same time, enough is enough. That's it. It's been over 2 weeks. You've been cooking for me for enough is enough. I'm out of here. I'm looking for Krishna. And along those lines in the purport there in that section of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada explains that actually here in Sachi Mata, the mother of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and it's instructing all the mothers of the world that although it is very happy situation for the son to remain in the house, at the same time, if the son doesn't leave the home and search out for Krishna, the son will become rebuked by advanced spiritual people, transcendentalists. So this will cause a lot of pain for the mother simultaneously. Therefore, Prabhupada concludes that actually all mothers must give encouragement to their children to look for Krishna. Otherwise, it's ma, which indicates maya, if mother doesn't allow children to look for Krishna. Very clearly put in Chaitanya Charitamrita, because this will be the most beneficial thing both for the son and for the family and for everyone else. So in this case, in this circumstance, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was, that's it, enough's enough. I've been mothered, that's it. Over 2 weeks, I'm a sannyasi. It's been over 2 weeks of getting his, mum's cooking for me every day for over 2 weeks. I'm a sannyasi, I'm getting pampered by my relatives and friends. Enough is enough. Nirapeksha, I'm out of here. I'm going to be indifferent. I'm looking for Krishna. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Prabhu left this very comfortable situation. So you see, this coming and going is always there in Krishna Leela. Actually, His Holiness Gaur Govinda Swami is explaining that Krishna Leela, or prema, always runs in two embankments. Just like when you see a river flowing very quickly. Why is the river flowing very quickly? Because there's two banks. And that prema runs in two banks, the Sambhoga, the bank of union, and Ripalamba, the bank of separation. So in this way, the river of transcendental nectar, the prema, is flowing through these two banks, and there's this dynamics, this internal dynamics between the devotee and Krishna. Oh, he's here, Haribol, Krishna's here, Krishna, we get first darshan of the Supreme Personality of God. At the same time, it's like, oh, Krishna's leaving, he's leaving. These two polar opposites are always there in Krishna Leela, whether it be Chaitanya Leela. Now here we're in the activities of Kapila Dev. This isn't so intense in terms of developed as like that of Chaitanya Leela and Krishna Leela, because Devahuti is seeing Kapila Dev with awe and reverence. At the same time, she's also got this intense Vatsalya Ras, this parental affection for her son, Kapila Dev, but there's definitely awe and reverence. He's my guru. And actually towards the end of this Bhagavatam canto, you'll hear that Devahuti, with her intense affection for her son, goes back to Kapila Vaikuntha. There's a specific spiritual planet in the spiritual world called Kapila Vaikuntha. As she became more attached in separation for her son, she became detached from material existence and went back to Kapila Vaikuntha. So there's always this transcendental dynamic. Oh, Krishna, Krishna, where is Krishna? I can't find Krishna. There's Krishna, it's Krishna. There he is. Oh, he's gone again. Oh, he's here, no, he's gone. It's specifically this Sambhoga Tata, this union is exhibited in Vraja Leela. It's explained by the Goswamis. But that doesn't mean that there's no Vripalamba in Vraja Leela. There's also Vripalamba, but the Goswamis, Rupa Goswami, specifically says it's tiny. It's only a little bit there because they're actually seeing Krishna all the time. Therefore, there's this thing called Prema Vaichitya, that even in the presence of their beloved, Rupa Goswami explains that even when there's Srimati Radharani and Krishna, Shringara, Rasaraj, Krishna, the enjoyer of all the transcendental mellows, even if Krishna and Radharani is there, still there's this Prema Vaichitya, that they feel separation from each other. It's a very interesting point. But mainly this Vripalamba is exhibited in Navavikshetra. Chaitanya Leela, who came in the mood of Srimati Radharani, is always crying out, where is Krishna, where is Krishna? Radha Bhav. So this dynamic is always there. It's always very wonderful, and you can see it throughout the Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and various scriptures of this always the coming and going of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And you'll see that Chaitanya Leela, of course, when Krishna Leela, when Akrura came to take Krishna and Balaram to Mathura, everyone in Vrindavan, the cowherd boys, Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, and especially the gopis were practically dying. You'll hear this. And this separation between the Vraja, the residents of Braj, as Krishna is being taken away by Akrura, is known as the Mathura Viraha. when Krishna is taken away. And they have this basically losing their lives. The gopis were so much in anxiety, oh, Krishna is going to leave us. They were putting themselves in the front of Akrura's chariot. I just want to run over by the chariot. Don't take him away. Don't take him away. This is the intensity of Krishna leaving Vrindavan. It created such an amazing emotional dynamic. And then Krishna turned around and said, actually, I have some business in Mathura. I promise you all I will come back. And it was only because of this promise that the residents of Braj, especially the gopis, could breathe another breath. Okay, he promised he's going to come back. Let's let him go. But here, we heard you. Everyone heard in Braj. You promised you're coming back. So as Akrura is taken, Krishna away, gone. All the residents were devastated. They could not eat. They could not sleep. The gopis were emaciated. Their bangles were practically coming out off their wrists because of their separation from the Supreme Personality of God. And again, a mundane moralist, worldly moralist might say, why did Krishna do that? He just left all his friends and mother and just left that, and now they can't even practically, they're practically dying. Why would Krishna want to do that? They don't understand that Krishna is giving them opportunity to experience the highest ecstasies of love of God. Actually, the residents of Braj, the gopis, this is Krishna's mercy. They're never separated from Krishna in one sense. As Krishna leaves, their meditation for Krishna becomes more and more intense. Oh, Krishna, Krishna. They actually become mad. And you hear this throughout the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. They just, wherever they go, oh, well, Krishna was doing like this. Oh, look at Krishna was doing like that. And he was doing like this in the Yamuna. They were just completely absorbed in Krishna's consciousness more intensely when so-called Krishna left Vrindavan. So this intense emotional dynamic is there, and it can be had in Krishna consciousness. And in material existence, we're actually very fearful and anxious. Am I actually going to be emotionally fulfilled in bhakti? Am I going to have emotional fulfillment and satisfaction? You're hearing all the time throughout Bhagavatam, even in this canto, that how much emotional dynamics are just going on between Kapila and Devahudi. What to speak of, in Ram Leela and Krishna Leela and Chaitanya Leela. And the more that we hanker for Krishna, the more we become detached from this material existence and develop this. This is something that we can aspire for, actually. In the beginning, we're just trying to, become motivated. This intense hankering for the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the beginning should really be like, intense hankering to chant my rounds with attention. It begins with that. Oh, yes, today is another day to chant Hare Krishna without offense. Hare Bol! If we can do like that on a daily basis, try and follow the regulative principles with great enthusiasm and attention, chanting our rounds, this is developing the proper building blocks to actually experience the best the top, attachment and affection for the Supreme Personality of God. In the beginning, we're just a duty, like Prabhupada says, love begins with duty. You might not want to chant your 16 rounds and follow regular principles, but you do it anyway because the Guru and Shastra says. Love is not an infatuation. Like in the material world, people think, people just coming in and out of love all the time. Oh, I love you, I'm out of love, I love you, I love you, just switching partners. It's not a kind of infatuation. Love is something that's a lot deeper than that. It requires duty, responsibility, commitment. All the things that in a modern Western society, what? Commitment, duty, responsibility, what do you mean? It's just a modern, it's just a weekend fling, whatever. It feels good, must be good kind of consciousness, But no, real love requires duty, commitment, responsibility. And it begins with duty, commitment, responsibility, and being enthusiastic to want to chant Hare Krishna without offense, to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, to hear from the spiritual master. And in this way we can develop our attachment and our hankering for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we want that intensity, we want that emotional intensity in bhakti, Otherwise we'll try and get that emotional intensity in the material world. If you look at it, when people out there, they're actually looking for this emotional dynamic in the material, intense. Yeah, you really get into sense gratification. You're like, You squeeze something out of someone, because everyone wants this intensity, emotional intensity in the material world, isn't it? I can see it. Even previously coming to Krishna consciousness, everyone wants to be absorbed in this emotional intensity. You find somebody and you just squeeze the emotions and whatever else comes out of it, That's intense. We want that intensity in the material world through sense gratification, but it never works out. We always end up frustrated and depleted, But so we have to dovetail that intensity in Krishna consciousness, and it begins with intensely wanting to hear Krishna, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We need to put our heart into it. Otherwise, we misplace our affection and all the time. I see it all the time. I remember many years ago when the brahmacharis first visited Ram and his wife in Kadikadi and had that donkey. Is that donkey still there in Kadikadi? Yeah, this pet donkey. I don't know. They called it some name. Does anyone know Ramachandra and his wife Sitarani? Yeah, do they still have a pet donkey in their property? Anyway, many years ago, the brahmacharis visited there, and the donkey was there, and the donkey was just looking at you like, and all the brahmacharis would come up to the donkey like, oh, look at the nice donkey, oh, it's so cute. Scratching his little chin, and the donkey would be like, yeah. It's like, we misplace our affection all the time, thinking, look at this, all the brahmacharis are being affectionate to this donkey. Man, if I had that one drop of affection for chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, how my life would be perfect. So you can see that we want that emotional intensity all the time, even in Krishna consciousness, but we have to do it in the right way. Otherwise, we have to look for it in the material. You end up patting a cat, patting a donkey, patting a dog, whatever it is. Everyone wants that emotional intensity. But it just has to be dovetailed, chanting Hare Krishna and in our devotional service. And what does it mean to be intense in Krishna consciousness? It doesn't mean that you just bombard into the temple and give me the Mahaprasadam and be all obnoxious and things like that. No, intensity means being enthusiastic. Utsaha nishya darya tatat kama pavad. Let me be enthusiastic to chant Haribol, Haribol. That's God right there. Have you ever noticed that when you walk into the temple and the curtains open, it's like you actually... you're counting down. Oh, here comes God. You're taking darshan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and sometimes it's just like, go. People are a little bit apathetic and spaced out. But Krishna is right there on the altar. Haribol! We're enthusiastic to chant our rounds, enthusiastic to take prasad and associate with the devotees with affection. And by the way, affection doesn't mean squeezing someone and rubbing someone's face and, licking someone or whatever it is. We have so much this conditioning in the material that affection just means rubbing flesh and carcass or something like that. But Rupa Goswami just says affection, priti lakshanam, he says in Nectar of Instruction, the 6 loving exchanges. That's all it is. Priti lakshanam, the 6 loving exchanges just means you do that with affection. So next time someone serves you up prasad, oh, thank you, or you're serving up prasad. You do it with affection. You don't just throw it in someone's face, In this way, bhakti becomes ecstatic, You try to dovetail that emotional intensity in the right way through Krishna and Krishna's devotees and Krishna's holy name. And life becomes ecstatic. So definitely we hanker like this in the beginning. Oh, how do I see Krishna? It's through chanting Hare Krishna, to serving the devotee, serving the order of the spiritual master. And then we'll understand what kind of emotional intensity Devahudi and Kapiladev is engaged here in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's like, oh, this is intense. Mother's like, yeah, thank you so much, being submissive to son. And son's like, you're choking up and affectionate to mother and all this. This is high stuff. This is intense levels of prema. But in the beginning, we can at least just be enthusiastic, chant Hare Krishna without offense. And this way we can begin our, we can become happier in Krishna consciousness. So we need the right sangha. We need the right association to do this in. Association is so important. Hare Krishna. Anyway, before I rant off in another spiel, I'll stop there because it's 9 o'clock. Maybe anyone quick question or a comment? Hare Krishna.
Thank you. I was hearing the other day that the main thing that prevents one from becoming enthusiastic is weakness of heart.
Mm.
So, I was wondering how do we conquer weakness of heart? How do we overcome it?
Yeah, you will read at the end of the 15th chapter, the purport Srila Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita that one must overcome the 2 weaknesses of heart in order to practice devotional service. Yeah, that's there. And what are those weaknesses of the heart? Basically, he's saying that it's our intense desire to lord it over material nature and become greedy for that. Okay? The problem is that when devotees become isolated, when you don't have the proper solidarity and the camaraderie to have this intense, enthusiastic association to want to actually progress in our Krishna consciousness, then it's like Maya, just like, whoa, this is too much. I've got all these ideas for lording it over material nature, and it sounds like it's a really good idea, but because I'm not hearing from the devotees regularly, or I'm not reading as much, or my rounds are getting lousy, we can become covered out in that way. So the most important thing is Sangha. And not just any Sangha, but actually devotees who are inspired about Krishna consciousness, We need to seek out that association. As our own spiritual master would say, you need to get into Sangha engineering. You need to engineer your Sangha in such a way that you get the best, you position yourself for the best situation so you can become enlivened and enlightened in Krishna consciousness, So if we're intelligent, we want to engineer our Sangha in such a way that we always get that we have the facility for that, And then the weaknesses of the heart, well, it's there, in all conditioned souls. It becomes a little bit minimized, actually greatly minimized in association of serious devotees. So especially chanting Hare Krishna with attention. After 30, 40 years, you might even see some devotees do some weird things, or maybe saying weird things. It's like year after year of inattentive chanting, you just let all these weeds of material desires just grow in the heart. And if you wonder why after, so many years, devotees don't really kind of like make any advancement or just apathetic, and Krishna consciousness is a nice religion and a belief, it's just because they really haven't worked on their chanting. It really is that simple. It's all about chanting attentively. And then if you see the value in that, then you'll arrange your situation in such a way that you always get maximum opportunity for chanting attentively every day. Your whole day revolves around it, like the spokes of the wheel revolve around the hub. That is just the main essence, of our practice. If we're intelligent, we'll arrange our life in such a way we get that maximum opportunity to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Nitai Gaur Premananda.